Welcome today to Construction Math. Today we're going to talk about histograms, and I hope you know what they mean. If not, by the end of the lesson you will. All right, on your note taker, you're going to write down at least 3 different kinds of graphs that you've ever seen or ever drawn. Share this with your partner when you get finished. Teacher, pause the video. When they shared with their partner, it's time for you to call on non-volunteers. I'll meet you back here in a couple minutes. Welcome back. Possible answers are types of graphs I've found. You can have a bar column graph, you can have a pie graph, a dot plot, stem and leaf plot, histograms, box and whiskers, line graphs, spider or radar plots, pictograms, and Venn diagrams. And there's more than that, but these are the most common. I hope you picked some or at least recognize some of these. So, first thing we're going to do is a math check, and what I want you to do is make a frequency table for this set of values that were just favorite numbers from people. All right, do this on your note taker. Teacher, pause the video until everybody is finished, and then call on non-volunteers. Welcome back. Let's go to our slates and see what we can do so that we can talk about a frequency table. All right, a frequency table usually has categories on one side and it has frequency on the other. So I'm going to put that these are favorite numbers and these are the frequency. Now there's a couple ways you can do frequency, and I'll show you what I like to do. So the number possibilities were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Easy to do, small numbers. So let's take a look at this. Would be nice if I had a ruler, but I don't really care at this point. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to make tick marks as I go through the data and put the tick marks down. So here, 5 was the first favorite, then 4, then 3, then a 6, then a 1, another 3, a 4, 2 more 5s, a 6, a 3, a 2, a 2, almost sound like I said a chew, a 1, a 3, a 4, a 5, and a 5. And what I like to do when I get 5 tick marks is I like to bundle them so I can tell that that's a 5 by cross-hatching. Then what I also like to do is just to make it easy on myself, and I'll count the tick marks. There was 2 people like the number 1, 2 people like the number 2, 4 like the number 3, 3 like the number 4, 5 like the number 5, and 2 like the number 6. And that's what a frequency table is. Normally too, that you'll title it, so this is a frequency table of favorite numbers. And I bet you've done that many times in the past. So check your answers, double check with me, and pause the video if you have any questions for your teacher or other students in the class. Welcome back. Let's clear this off and go back to our PowerPoint. All right, let's see. We got the same numbers. So this just looks a little bit nicer, the number and the frequency. And that's going to be key to today. If you can make a frequency table, it's going to be really easy to get the rest of the lesson. So on your note taker, fill in the red terminology. The objectives for today is number 1, to define terminology. Number 2 is to explain the difference between a bar graph and a histogram because they look alike and it's very important you know which is which. And 3, we're going to create a histogram. Right. So first thing off is we're going to look at our vocabulary. A histogram, its definition is a graphical display where the data is grouped into ranges such as from 40 to 49, 50 to 59, and then plotted with bars. It's similar to a bar graph, but in a histogram, each bar is in the form of a range, and we're going to explain what that means. So circle your level of understanding prior to this lesson. Check plus means I could probably define it in my own words without the definition there. A check means I was pretty confident about it. Check minus might mean I just heard the term, and an X means I've never heard the term. So draw a little picture or diagram that's going to help you define it in your own words and write a meaningful sentence. As we go through the lesson, put down any kind of connection or new information that's going to be helpful to you. Teacher, pause the video. When the students are complete, have them share their meaningful sentence with their partners. Welcome back. The difference between a bar graph and a histogram. All right, a bar graph has categories along the horizontal axis. They're individual responses like the days of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, favorite colors, names, states, and the bars do not touch in a bar graph. A histogram has categories or ranges, like from 0 to 9 years old, from 10 to 19, from 20 to 29. They have ranges that are also called bins. A histogram is a particular kind of bar graph, but in this kind, the bars actually touch. So I want you to fill in the missing terms. Teacher, pause the video and have the students discuss with their partner the differences, because in the next activity, we're going to see if they really can tell the difference between them. Welcome back. Take out your slates, and I want you to number from 1 to 4 on your slates, and tell me on number 1, should it be best represented by a bar graph or a histogram? So number 1, the choices are animals in the zoo. Number 2 are weights of the members of the football team. Number 3 are average miles per gallon for Toyotas. And number 4 are average weather temperatures for a year. Teacher, let the students number from 1 to 4 on their slates and put bar graph or histogram. Have them compare with their partners. When they finished, have them share by holding them up for you. Pause the video, and when that's complete, we'll meet you back here. Welcome back. Let's check. The number of animals in the zoo are the bar graph because it's not a range. We would have monkeys, we would have lions, we could have camels, but they're not a range. The weight of the members of the football team would probably be a range. We could have from 100 to 120 pounds, 121 to 130, and so forth. Average miles per hour for Toyotas, we could start probably at something like an old Toyota, maybe at 15 or 20 miles per hour to 25. 26 to 35, 36 to 45. And the average temperature, again, for weather would be a histogram because we could have ranges. We could have the average temperature between 40 and 50, 51 to 60, those kinds of things. So I hope you did well. Now, to make a histogram, we're going to have 4 basic steps. So fill in the red terms on your note taker. The first thing is to remember to come up with a title for the graph. So it explains to the person that's reading the graph what information is going to be displayed. It's important to label the axes, the X and Y axes, so that we know what we're talking about. So the label the Y axis is frequency. How many times did it appear? And label the X axis or the bins. It's going to be from 0 to 10, 11 to 20, those kinds of things. All right. So we're going to set up our graph for our histogram by labeling the axes and titling it. Next step is to find the number of bins. And this is usually up to the designer of the graph, but here's some rules you have to follow. All bins have to be the same size. If I go from 1 to 10, the next bin has to be from 11 to 20, then 21 to 30. You cannot have a bin that goes from 1 to 10 and then 11 to 15. All right, we're going to use whole numbers, and you can use between 5 to 20 bins. It's a judgment call. Usually I suggest between like 5 to 10, depending on your data. So I gave you some examples here and on your note taker of 3 bins, 4 bins, 6 bins, and 7 bins. Depending on the number of bins, because this data was all the same data, is how the graph will look. Number 4, you're going to plot the frequency, make the bars, and make them touch. So that's how we actually complete them. So sometimes there might be empty spaces because there was no data in that part. So what I want you to do is, on your note taker, write down the steps for making a histogram in your own words. Teacher, pause the video, have the students compare with their partner, and call on non-volunteers. And I'll meet you back here in a couple minutes. Welcome back. All right. We're going to create a histogram, not a bar graph, but we're going to create a histogram. We pulled 25 people and asked their favorite number between 1 and 50. Notice I decided, because I conducted the experiment, that I was going to have 5 bins. from 1 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, 31 to 40, and 41 to 50. Depending on what information you want to highlight, you might have changed that, but it seemed like a logical way to break this information down for me. All right, so we're going to add the frequency values to your note taker, and let's go on. First thing is I titled the graph and I created the axes. Favorite numbers. If I go back, I notice that my largest frequency was 7. So that when I came to this graph, my frequency on the y-axis only had to be up to 7. And then the ranges of favorite numbers are going to go on the x-axis. All right? So go ahead and complete that on your note taker. And we'll meet you back here when you're ready. Welcome back. Next thing we're going to do is I created the bins from 1 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, 31 to 40, and 41 to 50. That's exactly what I got off my frequency table. I have 5 bins, what seems appropriate for the amount of information. All right, so add that to your note taker. Teacher, pause the video, and when you're ready, start it again. Welcome back. So then I had the bars. I created the bars. I made sure that I had them touch. There were 3 values from 1 to 10. There were 5 from 11 to 20. From 21 to 30, there were 7. From 31 to 40, again, 3. And from 41 to 50, 6 people picked it. So I've got a nice graph. Each bar is the same width, and they touch. So we're done. All right. So here's a construction graph. What I want you to do is fill in the missing information first. We surveyed the number of hours that were worked by the members of the crew. So the only value I had is I put in a 9. And I want you, most histograms have 5 or 7 bins, and we're going to use 7 for this example. So you just need to add the 19 to your note taker. All right, now pause the video and have the student's teacher fill in the frequency table. All right, they can work with their partner to do that so that one partner could maybe read off the numbers and the others could make the tick marks. Pause the video until they're finished and have them compare with another pair. Welcome back. Let's see if you got the same numbers I did. I got 9 for the first bin, 5 for the second, 5 for the third, 6 for the fourth, 5 for the fifth, and 3 in the last one. Notice I bundled mine by putting a tick mark across the values of 5. That's common practice, but if you didn't do it, it's not incorrect. All right, so make sure you got the values. Next thing on your note taker I want you to do is work with your partner to create a histogram. Remember, in a histogram, the bars touch. We've already figured out the ranges for the x-axis just from our frequency table. Teacher, pause the video until students have had a chance to complete that, and we'll meet you back here in a few minutes and check. Welcome back. Let's see if yours matches mine. Here's my completed one, and just double check that you matched. I took the values right out of our frequency table, and it should be the same. If you have questions, pause the video and check. Is that the only way you could have made this graph? Of course not, but it's just the ones with the parameters that I gave you that we needed 7 bins, and I already set up the ranges for you. All right. Now you try. Everyone do this by themselves. I've given you the values. I've given you the frequency. So I want you to create a bar graph, or I'm sorry, a histogram, not a bar graph, a histogram for this data. All right. Usually the hardest part, if you had to do it yourself, was making the bins. But all you do is do something reasonable. On this particular graph, you do not have to start at 0. All right. Pause the video until students are finished, and we'll meet you back here in a few minutes. Welcome back. Let's check your histogram. Here's what mine looked like. There was notice between 175 and 179, there were no values there. So there's no bar coming up to make the histogram. Notice that I have a title. I have the frequency on the y-axis. I've labeled it. I've labeled the bins on the x-axis. And all of the values are the same size. Pause the video if you need to, If not, we're going to move on to one more piece. The last piece is, where does this go in math? Well, when you have a huge amount of data and you make a histogram and the bins get smaller and smaller, the shape of the histogram will represent that of a normal curve or a bell curve, which I found to be very interesting of where this came from. So fill in the missing terms. You may have heard of a bell or a normal curve before, but that's how they came across that information. And for closure today, you have 1 minute to write down the key points of today's lesson. Be prepared to share. Teacher call on non-volunteers, and we'll meet you back here next time for another lesson in math in construction.